someone driven by great desire steals all your wealth or lets others steal it, dedicate to them your body, possessions, and all virtue of the 3 times. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone cuts off your head when you haven't done anything wrong, take all their negative deeds upon yourself through the power of compassion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if others slander you throughout a billion worlds, in return speak with a loving mind of their good qualities. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone exposes your hidden faults and insults you in front of others, view that person as a teacher and bow with respect. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone you've cared for as dearly as your own child regards you as an enemy, love that person even more as a mother would her ailing child. This is the way of the bodhisattva. Even if someone of equal or lower status driven by pride treats you with disdain, respectfully place them on your crown as your teacher. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Though you may be impoverished, always disparaged, gripped by disease and tormented by spirits, never lose courage but take on the pain and misdeeds of all beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Though you may be famous and admired by many who bow to you and as rich as the wealth god himself, having seen that worldly fortune is without essence, do not be proud. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If the enemy, your own anger, is not tamed, subduing outer enemies will only make them increase. Therefore subdue your own mind with the army of love and compassion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Sensory pleasures are like salt water. The more you drink, the greater your thirst. Abandon at once all things that bring forth clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. The way things appear is your own mind. Mind itself primordially transcends fabricated extremes. Knowing just this, do not create concepts of subject and object. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When you come across things that attract you like beautiful rainbows in summertime, do not regard them as real and abandon clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. All suffering is like the death of your child in a dream. How exhausting it is to hold illusory appearances as real. Therefore, when you meet with difficult circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When even one's body must be given up when aspiring for enlightenment, what need is there to mention material things? Therefore, practice generosity without hope of reward or karmic results. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you lack moral discipline, you cannot accomplish even your own purpose. So wanting to achieve the purpose of others is truly absurd. Therefore, protect your discipline without concern for worldly existence. This is the way of a bodhisattva. For bodhisattvas who desire a wealth of virtue, all harm is like a precious treasure. Therefore, without hostility, be patient with everyone. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even hearers or solitary realizers who accomplish only their own purpose strive as if putting out a fire on their head. Seeing this, practice with diligence the source of good qualities for the sake of all beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Disturbing emotions are destroyed by insight grounded in calm abiding. Knowing this, cultivate meditative concentration that purely transcends the 4 formless absorptions. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Without wisdom, the other 5 perfections alone are not enough to reach complete enlightenment. Thus, combined with skillful means, develop the wisdom that does not distinguish among the 3 spheres. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Unless you examine your own confused ideas, you might look like a practitioner but not be acting like one. Therefore, always examine yourself and abandon confusion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you are driven by disturbing emotions and talk about another bodhisattva's faults, it is actually to your own detriment. So don't mention the faults of those who entered the great vehicle. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Concern for gain and respect causes conflict and a decline in the activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating. So abandon attachment to your circle of friends, relations, and benefactors. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Harsh words disturb others' minds and thus diminish the practice of a bodhisattva. Therefore, abandon harsh speech which is unpleasant to others. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When disturbing emotions become habitual, it is difficult to reverse them with antidotes. Thus, the soldier of mindfulness wields antidotes as weapons and destroys disturbing emotions such as attachment the moment they start to arise. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In brief, wherever you are and whatever you are doing, always examine the state of your mind. Act to accomplish the purpose of others through constant mindfulness and awareness. This is the way of a bodhisattva. With the wisdom of threefold purity, dedicate all the virtue gained from having made such effort toward enlightenment. Dedicate it to clear away the suffering of infinite beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In accordance with the words of the holy ones regarding the meaning of the sutras, tantras, and their commentaries, I have written these 37 verses on the ways of a bodhisattva for those who wish to train on the bodhisattva's path. This composition will not be admired by the learned because my intellect is poor and my education is limited. However, I followed the sutras and the words of holy ones, so I believe these ways of a bodhisattva are not mistaken. Still, because the vast deeds of bodhisattvas are difficult to grasp by simple-minded beings like myself, I beg the forgiveness of the holy ones for the mass of my errors, such as contradictions and inconsistencies. By the virtue arising from this, may all beings give rise to relative and ultimate bodhicitta, and thereby become like the protector Shenresi, who does not abide in the extremes of existence or peace. Good morning. Did you sleep and eat well and hold silence sweetly? Good. This morning we're going to do something funny. We're going to look at insubstantiality. And we're going to do it initially, at least, through conceptuality. I find that really comical. It's sort of like the essence of Dharma studies. Let's use our cognition and our words to see if we can penetrate that which we find so difficult to comprehend because it is beyond words. But that's what we got, so that's what we work with. So in verse 22, which is what essentially we're working with this morning, in verse 22, we're introduced very directly and candidly to the non-dual. All appearances are my own mind. All appearances are one's own mind. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. And I'm going to do a little explication of a way to look at that will help us here in our relative reality existence. But before I go to what seems manageable a little bit, maybe, I want to say something that I've said before in teaching on the 37 practices, and some of you have been here when I've told this anecdote. Here at the Garshan Institute, quite some years ago, a long time ago, a group of staff members and advisory council or board members were sitting together with Dr. Rinpoche. down the hill in one of the houses. It's what we used to call Dharma Cove. You can't see it from the road, but it's nestled at the base of this mesa. So we were sitting around this table and having excellent discussions. I mean, it was kind of like a little mini retreat, just because it was sort of away from the run of the activities. And this is true confessions time here. And I was complaining about, I was airing my negativity about someone else's negativity. I'm sure none of you have ever done that, but you can have pity on me. You know? And in the middle of my little litany, my little self-righteous litany that I was producing there, and Rinpoche interrupted. And he's usually very, if you've never met with him, you know, he doesn't usually interrupt. But thank heavens he interrupts me with some frequency, I have to say. So he interrupted me, and he looked me right in the eye, sitting across the table from him, looked me right in the eye, just, he's used, you know, we don't really see him, he's looking at us like this most of the best. So he looked me right in the eye, held out this booklet. Would have been a different color at that point. Anyway, held out this booklet. He said, Barbara. So there's no mistake about what he's about to do here. So he said, Barbara. I have to preface this. In the weeks or months actually preceding this particular event, I had been inwardly speaking to Rinpoche, which I often do as if he's right there, which is very beneficial because he is right there. And you will receive response as well. So, and I was just saying, and I never said it to him out loud, ever. I said, Rinpoche, help me to become like you. Just over and over, it was like under my breath, it was kind of like a little mantra, Rinpoche, please help me become like you. You know, a true bodhisattva, a liberator of beings. So over and over, I was asking for this from him. And so here we are in this meeting, and I'm, you know, doing a negativity litany, and he goes like this, holds the book, pinions me with his eyes, like an eagle, like a big eagle. And he says, Barbara, if you want to become like me, this is how I became who I am. He said, practice it. And then he really nailed me, and he nailed all of us. He said, take it literally. Take it literally. Everything in it, take it literally. So, in this verse 22, any of you take time to take a look at this before today? Okay, so it says, I bought a new pair of glasses a couple of days ago. I can see nothing through them. But anyway, that's what we're looking at, right? Okay. Verse 22 says, the way things appear is your own mind. Mind itself primordially transcends fabricated extremes. Knowing just this, do not create concepts of subject and object. This is the way of bodhisattva. The way things appear is your own mind. When I first was studying this text, it was with a different translation. It's wonderful to study the same text with different translations, or the same prayer, or even the same teaching that you receive with different translations. Each one gives a slightly different angle of view, a little nuance of meaning that opens the meaning of the teaching to you more broadly and more deeply. So in the first version of this text that I had to study, the first line of verse 22 says, appearances are your own mind. Appearances are your own mind. And when I started contemplating that, I remembered in the treasure text, the Terma text, called in English the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but called in Tibetan the Bharatsutra, it's instructions for the intermediate period between death and rebirth. It's a revealed treasure by Padmasambhava. In it, Padmasambhava says, appearances are your own mind, and that mind is emptiness, unarisen and unobstructed. So it's kind of a deepening of the first line. This verse, I find it very powerful. So appearances are your own mind. It hits me a little closer than the way things appear is your own mind. The meaning is the same. All appearances are our own mind. So now Rinpoche's instruction is take that literally. Take that literally. All appearances are your own mind. So you are appearances. You are my mind. I'm an appearance to you. I am your mind. The text doesn't say are displays of your own mind or reflections of your own mind or like your own mind. It says are your own mind. I'm starting with this for a reason. So because I have this habit of asking Rinpoche for what I want in the Dharma, I asked him to show me that. I need to see. I need to be able to see what it is I'm looking at. Yes? So I asked him to show me. Show me how appearances are my own mind. So this is all a slight elaboration of his instruction to take things literally. So that's what I was doing with my request to him, show me. I want to take it literally, show me what. And so I was shown very directly, just as if it was right here in front of me and I was looking at it clearly, as if I were looking in a mirror, or looking through a window, clearly seeing. It was very evanescent, very quick. It was just like that. It wasn't one of those, it wasn't a scenario that opened and unfolded and went somewhere. It was just an instant in which I was given to see that literally all appearances are our own mind, are my own mind, literally. I cannot explicate that for you, because it was one of those moments of directly seeing something, and I know we've all had moments like that. Sometimes we pass them by and say, oh, that was just a figment of my imagination, or it was just kind of a something, but pay attention. Pay attention when you have an inner seeing of that nature. Pay attention to it. So I was astonished and very grateful to see it, and it disappeared like that. As soon as I'd seen it, it was gone. But you can't unsee what you've seen, whether it's positive or negative. What you've seen is, you've seen that. So that set me onto a course of study about this verse 22, because I had seen it, so I could take it literally, which is what he instructed, take it literally, and because it had been shown me, I could then proceed taking it literally, which gave a very different avenue of approach to that simple sentence, all appearances are like one's own mind. Or appear. Has to say all. Somebody read it out loud for me. These glasses are almost useless. The way things appear is your own mind. So is your own mind. The way things appear is your own mind. This isness is this direct statement is the appearances are our mind. Now if we take that literally, how intimate it all is for us. How intimate and immediate is our relationship to the display of appearances that is the reality in which we live, and the reality that we give rise to through our karmic cause and effect. That is our own mind. How can you put anything away from you? How can you pretend it's not your creative power that gives rise to the effects in your life? How can you comfortably tell yourself, oh, it's that person's problem? How can you accept without a sense of responsibility the displays in the world that we all co-create together, the displays that you consider negative? How can you see those as the productions of somebody else's disturbed mind, if appearances are our own mind? I'm really just asking these as questions for your own personal contemplation, to ask yourself that. How are appearances my mind? How is this appearance? This is a beautiful appearance. We're in a really beautiful temple, and we're here for the pristine Dharma, and we're here with the highest motivation, that of benefiting all beings. So this display of our mind is glorious. Can you acknowledge that this is a reflection back to you of your mind? I invite you to open to that possibility that you have this mind. How tender, how piercing the beauty of the display, that we're saying, this is my mind. This appearance is my mind. And then how piercing is the display of war and privation and oppression and cruelty that we see in the world, and we see in the behavior of others. Are they not then also our mind? Those appearances and those so-called others, are they not also then our mind? I'm just dropping into your mind and my own little pebbles. They're transparent, they're translucent. They will make currents, let's call them contemplative currents for you, that will circle out like this, and you won't forget them. You'll remember some of these questions that I'm just sort of dropping in as these little pebbles, because this is for our continuing contemplation, and one of the ways of contemplation that's not analytic, although analytic contemplation is also very beneficial, but a non-analytic form of contemplation of the mystery, which this is certainly mysterious, is to have little points like this that you can turn to, or that come bubbling back up for you, and you let them roll around in your mind like luminous marbles. Just let them roll around. You don't have to do anything here. There's nothing to be done here. There's no work here to do. This is for you to just consider, let it roll around, maybe hold a pebble of contemplation like this, and like a little worry bead, and rub it occasionally, or like the, what do we call it, the touchstone that you might carry in your pocket. So you can jot down, or you can hear this again on YouTube, and you can jot down some of these contemplation pebbles so that you have them. And then in your mind, they could be like little, the little stone you carry in your pocket that you found when you were taking a walk on the beach, and it feels right in your hand, and you carry it in your pocket. It's a reminder of something important. You may not be able to name it, but you don't want to forget a moment when your mind actually is willing to suspend its grasping for materiality in contemplating insubstantiality. All appearances are one's own mind. And that mind is emptiness, unarisen and unobstructed. And sometimes when I'm sitting here with you, I'll say, "Are you with me?" Oh, well, maybe that question is no longer necessary under the circumstances of verse 22. Of course you're with me. Where else would you be? So when Rinpoche says about this text, take it literally, and we come to a verse like this in which we can't even imagine, it doesn't even seem possible that we could take it literally. These little reminder stones, these little translucent pebbles, you might occasionally be so kind of recalcitrant or resistant to this, the truth of this particular teaching, you might need to put one of those pebbles in your shoe. So that with every step you take away from looking at the meaning of this, little pebble says, "Wait a minute, wake up, wake up." And your Sangha mates will see you limping around, they'll say, "Oh, this person's really practicing." So your reputation will increase, and then you'll have to say again, "Well, I'm just limping because I got a pebble in my shoe because my mind is so dense." Yeah? So we'll do some meditation on this verse. That's not a word, that's the M word. It's not a word I like to use anymore. I don't know what it means anymore. So contemplation, it feels relatively newer, or more like what I experience. I won't say I do, because I don't do something in that way, but we'll do some contemplative practice with this verse too. Actually, let's start there, shall we? Let's move to the contemplative practice right now, and then I'll do a little bit more explicative stuff after we've had a chance to sit. And I'm just going to read the verse to you again as we prepare for contemplating, and it's your translucent pebble. All right? Are you all comfortable? Okay, good. You might want to take a sip of water. We want to lubricate and have very pliable and malleable the pathways. So sometimes a little drink of water is helpful. The way things appear is your own mind. Mind itself primordially transcends fabricated extremes. Knowing just this, do not create concepts of subject and object. This is the way of a bodhisattva. So let the first sentence be the translucent pebble. The way things appear is my own mind. The way things appear is my own mind. The way things appear is my own mind. And just let that roll around for a little bit. So now whatever you have seen or sensed or considered in that brief contemplation, just acknowledge it. Don't have to do anything with it, but just acknowledge it. That's what you've seen, that's what you've considered, that's what you've recognized, that's the question that's arisen for you. Acknowledge it and tuck it away. If you want to take a moment to jot something down in your notebook, you can, and then I'll move to another level of considering this teaching. So we can also consider this teaching in this way. A very down-to-earth, practical, relative reality understanding of what this points to. The nature of our, not the nature, the nature of our mind is pristine. It is primordial wisdom. The condition of our mind, which is what we live with and are creating moment to moment karmically. And when we look in, when we see all the jumble and chaos and confusion and beauty and sweetness and all the things that are always coming and going in our mind, we're looking at our condition. Our condition is a display of the infinite potentials of the empty nature of mind, the open insubstantial expanse that is the nature of mind. But the condition as we live with it doesn't usually point us to that openness and expansiveness. But so we need to understand how the conditioned mind is how the mind is conditioned in our relative reality experience, and what that means for how we see and how we experience our world and our existence. So, and I'm going to speak just of humans in this moment. So we come through into this life that we're presently in this moment that we're presently in it. We come through biology, we come through biochemistry, we come through molecular activity, we come through a childhood of complete dependency and gradual mastery of exploring and experiencing the world. We come through family. We come through culture and language, ethnicity. We come through genetics. We come through geography. We come through social and economic class. We come through schooling, informal and formal. We come through pain and confusion and despair. We come through elation and hysteria and exaltation and joy. We come through relationships. We come through study. We come through avoidance of study. We come through the entire panoply of human experiences and influences to this moment that we're in right now. We are an amalgam of all those things. We could say we're a product of all the experiences we've had on all those different levels and those different kinds of contexts. And the mind with which we sit here, it has been conditioned by every single experience we have ever had, by everything we've seen, everything we've heard, even the things we ourselves have said, by everything we've tasted, both with the tongue and with the mind and with the hand, with everything we've tripped over, everything we've climbed on. You know, we're conditioned by every single thing we've seen, touched, heard, felt, through all of our sensory experience. That apparatus of our sensorium is how we interact with the world, and all of those experiences are with us right now. We come through them to this moment. So, let's say my sister is sitting here with us. She may be, for all I know. She might be in one of the online community watching. But let's say my sister is sitting here with us. And as I look out, some of you are more familiar to me than others because I've maybe seen you before, but others are new. Are new. I haven't met you before in this lifetime in this way. But my sister, I think I know. All right, it's my sister. I've known her since I was born. You know, to her and my both challenge and love, both. You know, and. But I look out on this sea, this little tiny sea that is here, this room, and I see all of you, and I see, there's my sister. And so there's this sense of recognition and a sense that I know this person, you know, so I have some idea how she'll react to something that's being said and so on. Well, let's consider that for a moment. she's here as I am, having moved also through all of the conditioning, plus, 1,500 more categories of it that we didn't mention. And I wasn't much of a part of that. I mean, even though I was part of her experience as a child and had to somewhat as an adult, I don't know anything about what happened in her mind about all those things, right? Nor does she know what happened in my mind. But when it's somebody you know, you impute to them, oh, this is their motivation, I know that person, I know. We don't. I mean, the conditioning is so minute and so constant that the mind with which we are here meeting somebody that we think is familiar, the person I think is familiar, I don't really know that person. It's like, and in fact, because of the fine-grained nature of this relative reality conditioning that we all grow with, move through, it's as if there isn't even a sister there for me to think I know. It's as if when you look at a brocade or a tapestry, you see it all of a piece, and then you see the pattern, right? And then you may notice the gold threads, and you think, oh, but the whole thing is threads. There isn't anything there but threads. The tapestry is something created by something else. Other elements being brought together to create the tapestry. And the same as with my sister. She's been created, essentially, as the person she is in this moment, by experiences and perceptions and elements of conditioning of which I have no knowledge. And even if I knew what they all were, I still wouldn't know the way she took them and how it is that they are a part of her makeup now. I wouldn't know. I have no capacity to know that. Nor she of me. Yes? So, and even in this moment as I speak, the things I'm saying are also part of your conditioned mind now. And then there are aspects of what I'm saying that may seem novel, and you may be having emotional reactions to them of uncomfortableness or disbelief, or how could he tell her to take this literally, or whatever. That also conditions you. So it's not stopping just at the moment you walked in the door and sat down here. The relative reality experience is conditioned mind. And the interaction of elements of relative reality in the form of human beings is because we are conditioned, our minds are conditioned by everything in our experience, we are also conditioning everything we experience. Everything we experience, the experience is conditioned by everything we bring to it. So we are like that tapestry. Nothing solid here. And some of the threads are so beautiful, and some of the threads have become frayed, and some of them, the pattern seems a little off in some places, and in some places the material itself that's made up of all these threads, it looks as if it's really old and has been much worn, like a carpet, like a woven carpet. And some of it that hasn't ever been in the sun is just as bright as it was practically when it was first created. So we're like that. We're a tapestry. We're on display. We speak of appearances as the display of primordial awareness, arising based on cause and condition, appearing for a moment and then disappearing again. It means anything can happen at any time, and probably will, if the conditions are right for it. But this display is our mind. It is our mind. And have you heard this delightful expression, Leela? Leela, divine play, is that a good translation for it? Sublime play or divine play? It's the play of appearances. And then we use the word display, which has that word play in it. And so it's a real invitation for us to not get too serious about this, because that seriousness, it can be clinging, can be grasping or pushing away. But let's take this conversation. This is just the opening of a conversation that will move with you through the rest of your practice and life. This conversation is inviting us to play with the realm of appearances, because it's creative. The way we use the influences of our lives, the way we use the experiences that have conditioned us, it's not static, it's always happening, so it's always in motion, and we can, with intention, bring a thread in, or tie threads off in a harmonious way. I remember going through a period, I don't even remember how many years ago, maybe it was over 20 years ago, when I realized I was going through a time of tying off in beauty certain things, certain aspects of my life and my activities in this lifetime up until that moment. I was tying them off in beauty. There were things that had been tragic, things that had been very painful, things that had been inexplicable, and things that were still very painful. And I was moving into another phase of my life. I didn't really know anything about it, but I was tying off some of the frayed threads, tying them in beautiful knots, so that I could move on, having participated intentionally in the play of appearances. The Bodhisattva, as Bodhisattvas, we are choosing consciously to participate in the display of appearances that is our mind conditioned, interacting with the minds of other beings, also conditioned, in ways that will turn to good the potentials that exist in us all. Some of our work is to tie off threads in beauty. Some of our work is to untie some that have knotted. Some of our work is simply to say, whoa, speechless before the display. But this relative reality understanding of how we are shaped by everything that we encounter and everything we do and say. We're shaped by that, influenced, conditioned by that, and we bring that conditioning into the world and into our activities with others, most of the time not aware of how our conditioning is leading our behavior of body, speech, and mind. And one of the functions of our practice is to allow us to learn how to see the activities of mind in the moment in their relationship to the display that we are bringing forth and to the displays that we have brought forth. In other words, to see cause, karmic cause in the mind stream, and to see how it is in the moment that conditions are auspicious for it or conducive, how a certain karmic cause can come into play. We have the capacity to do this. It's not really even a doing, it's more an observing. We have the capacity to learn how to have this delicate, appreciative, non-judgmental but highly discerning mind of recognizing both the contents and the process of mind. And through cultivating that discernment, that capacity to recognize the mind's activities, we also learn how to see through the conditioned mind, which is just the display, the tapestry, getting more loosely woven now as we learn how to see it better. We can see, oh, it's not as tight as I thought it was. We learn how to see the actual nature of the mind. But we practice on seeing the condition first. And we're going to do some of that practice before this weekend ends. So I wanted to give you that kind of an entryway into recognizing the teaching of all appearances are one's own mind in relation to our actual experience as human beings in the created world, yes? Was that helpful as a way to approach, because we're approaching something we're approaching something that's not really explicable in the terms in which we usually explicate, yes? So we have to loosen our grasp a little. So it was helpful as a point of departure and as a way of approach, perhaps, yes? Is that? And you can contemplate this the same way you can contemplate the first line of that verse and then the other three lines as well. Yeah? So I want to speak about what the fabricated extremes are, because the verse says, mind itself primordially transcends fabricated extremes. Now, when I was learning how to sail as a child, the first thing that they insisted I learn, was how not to fall off the boat, and I already knew how to swim, so we were good there. But I had to learn how to not fall off the boat. But then the next thing was the taxonomy, the nomenclature, meaning the system of naming. All the words for all the parts of the boat, all the words for what you do with the parts of the boat, all the words for what you don't do with the parts of the boat, and all the words that have to do with the parts of the boat doing whatever they seem to feel like doing at a given moment and how you have to deal with that. So it was nomenclature about breaking into parts, that which is, for a little child, little girl experienced as a sailboat. Yippee! I get to go sailing, and me thinking I'm going to sit there, I've got the tiller in my hand, the sails are full, and off I go. And they wanted me to learn the parts. It was very disappointing, extremely disappointing. I did well, but I never really became a sailor. I did well in nomenclature. That's about breaking things down a little bit so that we can, shake hands with a different way of thinking or a different way of acting in the world or being in a boat. And so the concept of the extremes, the fabricated extremes, delights me as a nomenclaturist, and occasionally I go off into the flights of Buddhist categorizing, but Buddhists have lists for everything. There's some of you are familiar with these lists. It's hilarious and very helpful. But as we're contemplating the mysterious whole. I don't mean the whole, H-O-L-E. I mean the whole. As we're contemplating the whole, we get to break some things down into the parts. So, the fabricated extremes. I don't know them. I don't know all this really very well, but I know the part that captivated me and made me very, very happy. So that's the part I want to share with you. The two extremes, the two fabricated extremes are existence and non-existence. They're nihilism, nothing exists, and eternalism. Whatever exists is solid and self-existent and will exist forever. So nihilism and eternalism. And then come some refutations. Now refutations are lots of fun too. So the two refutations are appearances
cannot be said either to exist or not to exist. Enjoy. So let's talk about the two extremes first, the two fabricated extremes that posit either existence or non-existence. Nihilism says nothing exists, really. There is really nothing. And eternalism says whatever there is solid and permanent, and exists from its own side. It has its own existence, not dependent on anything else necessarily. So, okay, well, we can easily deal with nihilism, or think we can. Clearly something exists. Here we are. Right? So on the basis of sensory experience and evidence, we can refute nihilism. We can say, yes, something exists. But, just hold that thought in suspension. And that's eternalism. Wait a minute, I got confused. That's the thing about parts. They start to move on their own in your mind, and then you get confused. I'm confused. So nihilism is nothing exists. Sorry. And eternalism is something exists here, present, solid, real in its own way. So we can say that our conviction in our own existence, what we call the grasping to self, to the notion of self, and to the evidence of selfness, is a form of eternalism if it's a fixation of ours, if we're not able to allow a question in the mind about that. An eternalist is convinced that this object, start with something innocuous rather than with my own self, this object definitely exists, as the Tibetans say, from its own side. It has self-existence. Yeah? It may be composite, but we look at it as solid. The compositeness of thingness breaks that eternalistic fallacy apart, because this object is made up of other objects. It was created first in the mind of a human being, and then the object took form, different materials were brought together, and then they were subjected to certain industrial processes. The plastic was made malleable so it could be shaped in a certain way. Little tiny pieces were created that would hold some of these larger pieces together. The plastic was shaped, cut, and then formed to a certain kind of prescription, which clearly for me isn't working well. So this solid self-existent object made of parts, how can we say that it exists in and of itself? It will come apart. It'll get stepped on at some point. In my house, probably. It'll come apart. I won't have the little tiny piece that you screw back together. I'll let it go. It'll go into the junk or into my eye doctor's, deposit for broken glasses box. So that's a very simple-minded, because I'm a very simple-minded person, that's a very simple-minded refutation of eternalism. It's really simple-minded. But I'm not sophisticated in this stuff at all. And then let's do the same thing with nihilism. Can't say it doesn't exist. I've got it in my hand. You can see it. Yeah? I can hear it. When it's on my nose, I can see something through it, a little vaguely, but I can see something through it. It's clearly here, right? And the nihilist will say, but give you the refutation of nihilism for eternalism, do what I did. It's composite. It doesn't exist in and of itself, so it doesn't really exist. Nothing really exists. It's all brought together and created, composed, gathered. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. What comes together must disperse, and so on. So the two refutations are, it can't be said to exist, because it doesn't exist in the form that we see it as, right? It's not, this is just an illusion, because it's really just pieces. And it can't be said not to exist, because here it is. I warmly encourage you to look up the fabricated extremes and the two refutations in a book by someone learned, who can give you a very succinct and very clear explication, which mine is only kind of sketching at. But the teaching in the verse, which says, mind itself primordially transcends fabricated extremes. What sees this? You could say, oh, it's my eyes that see it. But they're also composite. Here today, gone tomorrow. Or Monday, perhaps. That's an in-joke. I'm having eye surgery on Monday. So what sees us is a pointing out instruction for beginning to observe, beginning to taste, beginning to familiarize ourselves with mind that sees, the primordial mind, awareness we call that sees even the seeing. So when I say, what sees this? The answer, of course, my vision. But then in the Dharma we also talk about vision consciousness, which isn't residing in the eye, and the dynamics of the physical eye, but is an aspect of mind. Because a blind person can see. Not the way you and I see at the moment, but a blind person can see the mind allows appearances that are not mediated by the eye. Yes? You can close your eyes and see. Yes? What sees? What sees that? That question is a penetrating insight question. What sees that? At any moment, in any activity, in any circumstance, particularly when there is a roiling reaction for you, mentally or emotionally, or an experience of great physical duress or pain, what sees that? Glancing within, what sees that? Gachin Rinpoche taught some years ago, and every now and then repeats, what sees confusion is clarity. What sees ignorance is wisdom. So, what sees the conditioned mind is awareness, is the wisdom mind. What sees the conditioned mind is the wisdom mind. Our Tibetan lamas laugh at us when we use the phrase wisdom mind, because they have a word that specifically is for that. I don't have Tibetan, so I can't tell you what that word is. I think it might be sems. But we need a word that points to the two ways in which we use the term mind, or at least two of the ways we use that term. So we say wisdom mind sometimes, or we could say what sees our inner experience, what sees our conditioned mind and our experiencing is unconditioned mind. That is also called the ultimate wisdom, primordial wisdom. Everything in our experience comes and goes. That's the nature of conditioned reality, the nature of relative reality. Everything is relative to something else. In fact, it's relative to everything else. And the coming and goingness of the conditioned mind's experience is really what defines, in a very significant way, the nature of conditioned mind. And what sees that is that which neither comes nor goes. So when our teaching in verse 22 says, don't create subject and object, don't get caught in the fabricated extremes, recognize appearances as one's own mind, speaking to all of these different levels of understanding, intellectual and experiential and spiritual, if you will, in immaterial or non-material. A slightly extended excerpt from my book, because it's hard to speak of these things. That's why I was laughing at the beginning and saying we're going to talk about something that can't be explained conceptually by using concepts. We're going to use concepts to try to point to the non-conceptual. Are you with me? Are we? Yeah. I love being able to ask you that question, and then I see your heads nodding. It's beautiful. But those of you who are not with me, you feel free to nod in the other direction, and then I might ask you, well, right? I might ask you, well, where did we part company momentarily, right? So feel free to say no if you don't feel as if you're right here. It doesn't mean we have to understand this all intellectually. This is the realm of the. I love this. This is the realm of the mysterious, if you will. And there's a story that I love to tell because it was it was a real penetrating insight moment for me. Many years ago, in another tradition, with a different language involved, there was an invocation given at the beginning of a practice or prayer session. Some of you will remember this story from last time, I think. And one of the students was standing up to give this invocation, this calling down blessings from the Sublime Ones, and in the language that we used in English, we used the term "the Great Mystery." In this particular environment, the term "the Great Mystery" was used. And this student was very fluent in English, but it wasn't her native language. And sometimes, no matter how good you are, your thinking is in your native language and your speaking is in the acquired language, and there's a little... And I could tell as she started to speak that she was thinking in German, because this was a German speaker. Just by the way the pronouns came out. And so she was addressing the Great Mystery, and so she invoked the big secret. It was so great. It's called, it is the big secret, and it's called self-secret. It's secret till you get it. And then when you get it, it's not a secret and not a mystery anymore. We're presently, and we haven't got it yet, right? For us, this is the big, we're looking at the big secret, and we're thinking, how do I even look at this? Yeah. So that's the concept mind. Then you say, well, what sees this? And there is an interiorizing energetically that occurs when you ask that question. Will you ask that question just in an open-minded way right now about yourself sitting here and you're having your thoughts and your emotions and your body's experiences and so on, just for a second ask yourself, what sees this? Okay. In one-word answers, no exposition here, give me one word to describe what happened for you in that moment. You first, okay?
Spirit.
No. You don't have to be called on.
Insecurity.
Insecurity, okay. Keep it coming.
Commentary.
Commentary? Okay. Just shout it out. You don't need to wait for your turn.
Opening.
Opening.
Gut.
Death?
Gut.
Gut? Gut. Okay.
No different.
Say again, louder.
No different.
No effort?
No different.
No different. Okay.
Externalization.
Externalization? This is fascinating. Yeah, more. Give me more. Cool? Who? 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 Yeah? More?
Seeking. Seeking.
Seeking? What I get from this is that you were able to see what was happening in your own mind. And to speak of it, you could give it words. That interiorizing of being able to see the contents and the movement of your own mind, that's because the mind can recognize its condition. That is always available to you. At any moment, no matter what your condition or circumstance, you can look within in that way, and you will have information about your condition. And then you can ask again, well, what sees that? The body is our partner in this process. There's that interiorizing of the gaze, that inward attention, it also draws us energetically into an experience that is perceptible to mind, but something is also being communicated in the body. Were some of you aware of that, of an energy drawing within? No? Yes, some of you were. Yeah. So it's not a cerebral event that's occurring. If in fact appearance is our own mind, our body also is our mind. Yes? Now there's a novel thought. So, a good one. Another translucent pebble. So if I may, just if you'll indulge me, this is not authorial pride here. It's just that I spoke of something in the way I wanted to speak of it in writing. It's difficult to do that for me in oral teachings to the same degree that I can do it in writing. In writing, you get to go back and question yourself. Did I say that exactly the way I would like to? And the answer is often no. And then the writing gets better because it becomes more precise. So these are pointing out instructions on recognizing the nature of mind. The way things appear is your own mind. Mind itself primordially transcends fabricated extremes. Knowing just this, do not create concepts of subject and object. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Let this pith teaching from Tokme Zangpo roll around in your mind like a luminous marble, turning and turning, mysterious and magnetic, an irresistible invitation to profound awareness. Insight may seem to come and go, glimpsed or sensed for a moment, then dissolving. As a dear student memorably put it, half laughing in consternation and irony, I just can't grasp the insubstantiality. We are poised at the crux, about to comprehend something immensely, urgently significant. For here we begin consciously and intentionally to deepen our understanding of the true nature of mind, beings, and phenomena, and thus of suffering and liberation from suffering. Here we taste truth, the non-dual union of appearance and emptiness, of familiar and vast, the intimate infinite. In this verse, then, our teacher Tokme Zangpo is drawing our minds to contemplate the ultimate nature of reality. Nothing is more important to understand. In fact, this may be the only thing we truly do need to understand. Yet many of us find it challenging, if not frankly dismaying, to make an approach to this teaching. The openness and insubstantiality of phenomenal reality, the void nature of appearances and all phenomena, we can come creeping up to this illusory edge and then panic and run. Enmeshed in and fully identifying with material reality, we can almost swoon with a kind of mental vertigo and recoil when introduced to the essential emptiness of the appearances and experiences we take as the very fundaments of our experiential reality. A word of reassurance from an old acrophobe. An acrophobe is somebody who's said to fear heights, but it's actually, it's not about heights, it's about the certainty that you will leap into the abyss. I'm the old acrophobe. A word of reassurance from an old acrophobe. There is no edge, no precipice to fall from, and no one to fall. Ha! Reassured now? To help us approach this teaching and to solve all our problems forever, here are 7 points for contemplation. Remember, this is all going to be on the recording. You don't need to take notes. And besides, I have a handout for you of what I'm reading to you. It's already there for you. 1, mind. Open, empty, clear, and ground of all. 3, all phenomena, within and without, are of this same nature, open, empty, clear, and luminous like space. Thus mind and appearance, one taste. Thus all objects of grasping and repulsing, including the notion of self, are of this same nature, open, empty, clear, and luminous like space. 6. Thus all causes of suffering collapse, dissolving in the open, empty, clear, luminous expanse. 7. Thus samsara collapses, dissolving in the open, empty, clear, and luminous expanse. So we work with this information that is pointing us towards meaning, towards understanding. We work with it with our good minds, our good intellects, our good cognitive process. We don't leave our intellect behind because we're dealing with the ineffable or the insubstantial. We use our intellect to create a very clear approach to understanding, and a mastery of concept allows us to get closer and closer. It doesn't penetrate the last part that allows us to directly experience, but it's a process of familiarization. We have familiarize ourselves with the notion of insubstantiality of appearances, and then we play with it. We turn it around and we roll it around in our hands and in our mind, and we think about it, we read about it, we look for examples that might make us think about it maybe in a very precise way with regard to, say, a specific event or a specific object or a specific experience. We bring to bear the full power of our creative intellect to understand that which is not comprehensible to the creative intellect. It's not the intellect that'll get us there, but the intellect brings us to the door, right? And we want to come to the door. We want to approach the doorway of understanding. The understanding is not of the intellect. However, there's this. When you remember earlier today I spoke of this moment of insight after I asked Rinpoche, show me directly, please, how appearances in my own mind, and I was given to see something. There is, it would be impossible to describe it really more than to say, yes, I saw that. I saw directly, succinctly, and clearly, and obviously, unforgettably, that appearances are my mind. But I can't penetrate that with my intellectual understanding. I see that as an experience. But some people call those visions, and then some people have, and I myself, and I'm sure many of you have at times had a vision that you'd call a spiritual vision of some sort or a mystical experience. We don't try to penetrate that intellectually. We don't try to hang on to it. We don't try to replicate it. That's all clinging, What we do is live the truth of what that moment of clarity showed us. We live it forth. That's why it's been given, so that we can live it, not so that we can try to chew it up into small pieces to digest. We'll get indigestion that way. It's so that we can live the truth of what has been directly experienced, even for a nanosecond. Is that helpful? Yeah, it took me a while to understand that. After my first direct, significant insight, I was really angry and despairing for about 10 years trying to get that moment back. I hope that's helpful to some of you. Yeah, it was at least 10 years before I got it, that I can't get that back. I can't create it to happen again. I can try to memorize the conditions that seem to be obtaining at the moment, but that didn't seem to help. I even, took very seriously and practiced assiduously the practice that seemed to make that doorway open for me. It's all hopeless. It's not going to do anything for. It'll keep you on the cushion, which will keep you out of other kinds of trouble, perhaps. But it's not the trying that shows you what you're trying for, right? That's not. The trying can clear away the obstacles. But so what I understood finally, and again, sometimes I'm repeating myself. If I've said this to you or to some of you before, just enjoy the fact that you get to hear it again. There's an American, a Native American wisdom teacher who wrote about visions. It might have been Lame Deer, Seeker of Visions. That might be the book that I read this in, but it might not be too. He went on his vision quest, and on a vision quest in his tradition, you call for vision. You go up the mountain, metaphorically or factually. You go up the mountain, you light a fire, and you keep the fire burning for a certain period of time, and you're calling for vision. You're calling to see. You're not calling to see your purpose. You're calling to see the nature of truth. You're calling to see how to be a better human being. You're calling to see how to become like the great ones who benefit all. I mean, you're calling for vision. And when he received the vision, and when he concluded his vision quest and went back down the mountain, he went to see his own teacher, because you then have to give your vision to your teacher to say what you were given. And his teacher said, now you have to make it real. And the making it real in that culture, in that time, and in that tradition of practice, was that the community needed to enact together the vision that this single person had received. So there was ceremony and dance and and song and so on, but there was a script basically his vision provided, and the community needed to make it real. In other words, to bring it down to earth, literally with their feet on the earth, bring it down to earth. And that was what turned me from my futile quest to get it back and to recreate it. I was shown, this isn't about the experience, this is about what the experience gave you. Take it out, give it away. Live it for the benefit of all. So, do that. Okay? Shall we take a break? Yes, I think the answer to that would be yes. Let's take a break. Let's say, it's about 10 minutes. Let's say, how are you doing with 15 minutes? Is 15 minutes enough, or do you need 20? That wasn't a yes-no question. Okay. 15 is good. Okay. Enjoy your 15 minutes of relief and replenishment. And I'm going to place on the table the commentary that I read to you. Would you like to put that on the table for me? Thank you. It's over there at the table just inside the door. Please be sure.